Hi folks, well, this is Miguel from the Embargo Man channel. Okay, if you know the subject of the video, this is the first thing that we need to do. Okay, I may not know Korean, but this is for you guys that you better listen to this, and I knew that this is very important for all you guys to understand what's going on in commercial aviation industry, and just for one particular company that I will say thank you to the people in Mobile, Alabama, to make the planes I ride just to see my father going to Colombia and returning back to Miami, Florida. Kudos to the people in Mobile, Alabama for making the A320 series of planes. Yes, so it was an A319, and you folks at Mobile, Alabama, you have done a great job bringing people safely until I want to send to the same company that you guys work for over there in Mobile I'm going to speak out first before I go on with the Koreans, with the South Koreans. I am going to do this, that I would say this. Okay, so as I could say that I have released on February 15th, 2024. All right, that's when I returned. I returned safe home in a plane made by Airbus. All right, so the things with the Boeing things, I am so supportive of American manufacturing. I support of creating American jobs, and I believe all this incidents. That means, what is Boeing doing? Boeing is creating more jobs in Mobile, Alabama for their competitor just because they're not making their things right. That's the reason why. That's the reason why Boeing is going down. The Alaskan Airlines flight pop off doors. All right, so the first thing that's what it is when I came back from Colombia is there's just one president before 2026 that I will say that the company Airbus should do before COMAC enters within U.S. air with American air. So before this, it's going to take for a COMAC C-19, it's going to take 3 years to be approved by the FAA and the EASA of Europe, right? So all this shenanigans what's going on, I believe that the president they have in Colombia would ban Boeing planes for being faulty and approved COMAC C-19, a Chinese-made plane. How the heck are you gonna go an Avianca Airlines scheduled COMAC C-919 to enter U.S. aerospace when it's even not proven by the FAA? All right, so this is the first thing for Airbus is that that the first thing when there's a crash and there is Gustavo try to ban Boeing planes to be used in Colombia, that is, say that he goes against the FAA. The first thing is that Airbus should make planes in Colombia that have a Camila plane, a Colombian-made airplane, proven that Airbus would have a chance to build a plane factory in Colombia before, just to let Colombian Airlines, if they switch from one plane, instead of using the COMAC right ahead. They could use a Colombian-built A320 plane to enter to Miami, Florida with no problem ease, because I mean, yes, they made the plane in Alabama, but most likely would be a better off intention. That's just to prevent a Boeing crash, a Boeing 737 MAX crash, to be involved in Colombia before 2026, right? So that's just to say somebody approve a Chinese-made plane. Airbus, on the other hand, have no problems getting an Airbus plane built in Bogota to enter U.S. aerospace with no problem, compared to with all the shenanigans of a C919, being used by a Colombian airliner. That's it. The first thing they had to do for Airbus, I mean, it is this that you guys, and this is all to you. I know that is one day I want to go to Japan, but I'm comparing Japan to Boeing in some sort of the other way around for you Korean audience, to let you know where is this going? Where is this going on? Boeing and their lawsuits and denial. All right. So let's put it all this way. That I have made videos of, want to see Korean aviation, commercial aviation industry to flourish. That's what I mean, right? The first thing that we need to do is this. What if you have rode in a 737 MAX? What if a 737 MAX from, let's say, Korean Air try to crash near Seoul, South Korea, right? So what's going to happen is you could sue Boeing all you want. You could have sue money to buy a lawyer. You could get a lawyer with all the money from an Arabian sheik to blame it on Boeing, because I mean, an Arabian sheik have more money than Boeing, and then if you use a lawyer and money from an Arabian sheik, you could say, oh, look at Boeing, no compensation whatsoever. All right, so this is where I see things to fall down. All right, things to downfall. All right, the documentary is on Netflix. Watch it, and let me tell you why. It is a complete nonsense. That, let me tell you what happened with the victims of Lion Air and Ethiopian Airlines, all because of an MCAS. Boeing acts like the Japanese government. The victims of Lion Air and Ethiopian Airlines are the Chinese prostitutes of World War II, while Boeing is like the Japanese government, protecting those old dirty bastards, those sick, grumpy old bastards who were soldiers that rape Chinese women, being forced into forced prostitution, right? So that's what Boeing does, and it says, no, nothing involvement. Yes, I mean the buck's on him, just like what Ted Cruz said to the former Boeing CEO, and what now it is with Calhoun, right? So now, as the former CEO of Boeing, Dennis Muhlenberg, acting standout right there. The victims were the Chinese prostitutes of World War II, and probably Dennis Muhlenberg is like the Prime Minister of Japan, denial of what it is about what the Boeing workers doing, a sloppy job. This is like You want to know all this? This is like the same thing. The same situation going on. Is just that comparison. So to let you know, folks watching it in South Korea, you know what it is. You know what I mentioned of that kind of comparison, comparing Boeing with the Japanese government and comparing the victims of the Ethiopian Airlines and Lion Air as there were like the Chinese prostitutes that are into forced prostitution. And you understand the name of a Chinese prostitute, a Chinese girl or a Chinese young woman get into forced prostitution for sexual services for Japanese soldiers are called a comfort woman. All right, not just Chinese women, but you understand the Korean side of the Korean women being forced into forced prostitution. This is similar to say what the U.S. soldiers would do, get Puerto Rican women into forced prostitution kind of thing. Because I mean, Korea used to be Japan's Puerto Rico during World War II, and you get the point right there. But most of all about this involvement of all this, that Boeing still have denial from Muhlenberg to Calhoun. Now, what are you gonna do to Calhoun? I mean, at least Calhoun have straight up talking to what it is, but still denial to what was gonna happen if another Boeing 737 Max plane crashes somewhere in the world. But you have to get ready. You have to get ready. You gotta get all this. All right. This, if one thing that where does it goes, if the next Boeing crash happens, if it happens in Japan, this is a whole different thing. Let's not just compare that. Then Japanese companies will, like Mitsubishi and like Mitsubishi and Honda, probably most likely Honda would put the guts to compete against Boeing and whatever it is. But in the case of South Korea, well, in the case of Boeing 737 Max crash happens somewhere in South Korea, could be by a Korean Air, could be by an American airline carrier. Then let's just compare this. Airbus is the General Motors and KAI is the Daewoo. All right, so this is where they have all this. I mean, all you guys are ready to sue Boeing. You have to sue Boeing. Look at this. Feel like your great grandmothers or your grandmothers who were into forced prostitution back from World War II. If you notice about the horror stories of Korean and Chinese women get into forced prostitution by Japanese soldiers and they rape them, right? Boeing is the Japanese government and your grandmothers are the victims. Like let's say a Boeing 737 Max crashes in South Korea, then you know the denial that Boeing's gonna act exactly like the Japanese government, being involved against Chinese prostitutes suing old Japanese soldiers who are in the armed forces of Japan, that these men were raping Chinese and Korean women. They said they didn't do it. That they just, this is just a bunch of Chinese hookers blaming the Japanese government for nonsense. All right, that's how they say. That's how Boeing acts. It can only act like this if that's going to happen to you. All right, so if it happens to you, what's going on? You could get sue money. All the family members of Korean victims, South Korean victims, that have family members of South Korean victims that died in the next Boeing 737 MAX crash will get all the money in the world involving with lawyers. They get all the money. Doesn't matter if the money comes from an Arabian sheik. All the money from the Arabian sheik goes to a lawyer to go against Boeing. So that what it is all the sue money goes in. This is where the CEO of Airbus meets with the CEO of Korean Aerospace Industries. So what will happen if they meet in Sacheon? After Korean family members sue Boeing, is going to, all the sue money goes to, of the dead Korean victims, goes to Toulouse. And what's going on after all the sue money goes to Toulouse, then that's where the headquarters of where it's been to say of a Pinto, of a Ford Explorer rolling over happenings in South Korea, and then you have people that sue Ford, and then you have General Motors, acquiring Daewoo. But this time, Boeing would be like, let's say in the 1970s, the Ford Pinto getting hit in the ass, and then Airbus is General Motors, KAI is Daewoo. All right, so this is gonna be just like that. And what's going to happen with all the sue money, instead of Detroit, it goes to Toulouse. It is that they're going to meet up in Sacheon, where the first Airbus A320 will be built. First Airbus A320 family, probably A320neo, will be built in Seoul, South Korea, for Korean Air, and probably they might even make South Korean Airbus planes to be exported for Japanese airliners to use, right? So the first thing they do is that they sign up everybody in Sacheon, family members of the victim for the Boeing 737 MAX crash that happened in South Korea. They just yell at that, whatever it is. Even Korean trainees showing up in Toulouse, in Hamburg, showing blaming against Boeing. There are just these young South Korean kids or South Korean young adults ready and to build planes in South Korea, getting trained in Toulouse and Hamburg. So what was going to happen? They going to protest against Boeing and go. They yelling. I remember when when Koreans begin protesting and they say, "Blame it on them, blame it on them" in Korean, but they blame it on Boeing, all the South Korean trainees in Hamburg and Toulouse. So, and this is what will happen. And that's what's going on. So, as it is to say all this, that you have to understand how Boeing works, and it is. I mean, the only thing that I have done a video is about the Lockheed Martin making airplanes in the United States, because I don't want another American industry. But for the South Korean industries, Airbus is GM. Korean Aerospace Industries is Daewoo. So what will happen with the Daewoo of the aviation industry? Is going to be more like the Samsung of the aviation industry, as it would becomes Airbus Korea. KAI becomes Airbus Korea. The F-19 F-21 Burmese Korean fighter jet will be in line to be built in Mobile, Alabama, after Airbus acquired KAI, and even Hamburg, Germany, or Spain. Where else where this plane's gonna be built, right? After Airbus acquires KAI and becomes Airbus Korea, right? So as to all the saying about this and the formation, that I believe that one of these days Boeing gets in trouble in South Korea, and the Korean victims or go and sue Boeing. Let me tell you, just put in a grain of salt. You guys are going to step on the same shoes as your grandmothers and great grandmothers, along with the Chinese sex slaves that are into forced prostitution by Japanese soldiers, Japanese men who are in the Japanese armed forces during World War II, saying that they deny raping Chinese women. They denied raping Korean women, your grandmothers or your great grandmothers. And it's gonna be the same thing if you have somebody dying a Boeing 737 MAX. That is gonna be your brother. It's gonna be your mother. It's gonna be like all this. Boeing is raping the lives of your family. They would, and just to say they are forcing them, the victims. Let's say if your parents or family members or friends who crash in a Boeing 737 MAX, they are like your grandmothers or great grandmothers that Boeing forced them to have sex in saying being killed, and Boeing denies all the wrongdoings, the same thing as the Japanese government with the old geezers, with these old grumpy bastards when they become sick fucks for being back in the day, happily raping Chinese women, raping your grandmothers. And that's what Boeing does. Boeing just deny the deaths of your family members. That is what is going on. And this going on like this, and just the saying one of the whistleblowers has died because of blaming Boeing and Boeing's wrongdoings and all this stuff. Why? Because he is one of them to be the whistleblower that the victims were the Chinese prostitutes. And this is the guy who talks for the Chinese prostitutes. Boeing is the Japanese government protecting these old dirty-minded men when they were young, and they have raped lots of Chinese women, lots of Korean women, and lots of women of other Asian countries and other countries, even a Dutch woman or something like that. Am I just saying that's how Boeing is acting right now, right? So for all this going on, and the reason why I made this video is that once you ride in a Boeing 737 MAX, or any Boeing plane for that matter, if it becomes faulty, put yourself in the shoes of your grandmothers and your great grandmothers. Boeing is the Japanese government. When you die in a Boeing plane, even a Boeing 737 MAX crashing somewhere in Seoul, South Korea, or somewhere in South Korea, what would Boeing do after you die? And what would the family members do? You have been fucked. You have been raped by Boeing, and your family would be raped by Boeing, just like your grandmothers being raped by Japanese soldiers during World War II, or your great grandmothers being raped by Japanese soldiers during World War II, and then the Japanese denied they didn't do it. It's just a bunch of a bunch of jealous Korean and Chinese whores wanting money to steal from the Japanese government. And you guys, that is just to put Boeing as the Japanese government, as you guys were to die, your family members would say, "What happened? What happened?" Boeing keep up the lies, and when they lie, they say they have denial. The pilots are drunk, or the Korean pilots are drunk. Boeing, acting like the Japanese government, would be in denial that you are in the same shoes as your grandmothers and great grandmothers during World War II. All right, so that's how Boeing acts with you guys, and this is the reason why all the sue money and everything else could be that you're ready to all this. I mean, this is just like that. And you might lose your parent, you might lose your grandmother, or you might lose your mother or your brother, your sister in a Boeing crash. Then get ready. Look at Boeing. Look at Boeing as it was the Japanese government given denial, that they denied raping Chinese women, that, as Boeing says, they denied that your parents, that your brothers, your family members, your cousins died in a faulty Boeing 737 plane. Same thing as the Japanese government denied of Japanese men raping your great grandmothers, or the Chinese women they forced to rape, and that's how Boeing acts, right? This is just a very good comparison to be ready to look at the eye at court. All right, look at the eye at court, because I believe that you could live with an American competitor, but you could with an American company that makes airplanes like Lockheed Martin, but you could live without Boeing if Boeing doing their stuff the wrong way and they keeps up denying like Boeing were the Japanese government, and after all they just say, and they look at the victims like they were Chinese and Korean prostitutes that got raped by Japanese soldiers during World War II. You gotta look at them like that. So that's how it is, because to all that point and all this denial, and I think that you guys notice that once you sue Boeing, once you go to court, the money that all the sue money from Korean victims that died in a Boeing plane, even in a Boeing 737 MAX, that I bet is going to be next. The Koreans are going to be next to die in a Boeing MAX, that the sue money goes to Toulouse, a company that would buy KAI Forms Airbus Korea, that all the airlines, South Korean based airliners, would ditch Boeing because of that. Understanding of Boeing comparison with the Japanese government and the victims to be the Chinese women and Korean women's getting into forced prostitution by the Japanese government during World War II, then I bet that even the South Korean US-1 would become a Korean-built Airbus, all right? Maybe an A350 could be, yeah, maybe A380 will be built in South Korea. And all this suddenly, thanks to the formation of Airbus Korea, after sue money and all this, the first airplane to be built would be in Sacheon, South Korea, a Boeing A320 built for Korean Air, right? Then after the success of the first Korean-built A320neo, then Airbus Korea even though would work with McDonnell Douglas out of a fighter, with Lockheed Martin over a fighter jet, then then you might see probably would be good for a third sequel or for a second sequel for Top Gun movie or something, showing how if a Boeing 737 Max crashes and they meet with J.A. Kim playing in Mobile, Alabama to make the Korean fighter jets in Mobile, Alabama after Airbus acquires Korean aerospace industries, right? So then I would say this: Airbus Korea will have Airbus be the official supplier of NASA, making space equipment in Sacheon and then in Mobile. All it is that all the parts that are building a space shuttle in Mobile will come from Sacheon, from Airbus, in Airbus Korea, and also known as KAI, right? So that's where it goes. Airbus would be taking over Boeing. I mean, this is why it is. This is why I believe that for the Korean commercial aviation industry would be backed up by a parent company based in Europe. I mean, by Boeing's European competitor. I mean, the Korean aviation industry will be aided to a company based in Europe, acting like General Motors with the automobiles acquiring Daewoo. But this time Airbus Korea would be the Samsung of the aviation industry. And that's how Airbus is going to act. Airbus Korea would be the Samsung. And you know what it is? Samsung microwave ovens, TVs, phones, and all that stuff, all right? So that's how it's going to act, like the Samsung of the aviation industry in South Korea once KAI becomes Airbus Korea. All right, so as it is with everything, as it is with everything else, I could say this: please be ready. Please keep your hope up. You understand that all this that have happened. Watch Downfall documentary on Netflix. I think it's still out or something like that. Watch any documentary or anything based on Boeing's flaws, and you understand why Boeing acts like the Japanese government and the people from Lion Air and Ethiopian Airlines are a comparison with the Chinese prostitute that got into forced prostitution during World War II. That Boeing is the Japanese soldiers of a faulty Boeing 737 Max plane, and the victims of the Ethiopian and Lion Airlines that get killed are the Chinese women that got raped by the Japanese soldiers during World War II. Just look at it that way. So that's how it is. And you understand why a Chinese woman or a Korean woman that are serving sexual services, getting to forced prostitution for Japanese soldiers are called comfort women, right? Thanks a lot for doing that. So see you on the next video on Embargo Man. Please comment, subscribe, and get ready. Please collect all the money. Please go ahead. Sooner or later, you might see Korean trainees in Mobile, Alabama, in Hamburg, and in Toulouse, yelling in Korean, Blame It On Boeing. It's just, I don't know Korean, but yes, you understand Korean and you understand what they do. If those workers that are going to make a plane in Sacheon, South Korea, getting South Korea into the commercial aviation industry with these South Korean trainees, will yell the blame it on Boeing or something that they say in Korean, same thing as the Korean prostitutes that are kicked out or whatever, or the Korean or the women that were get into forced prostitution that are speaking for the Chinese women that got raped. Remember about that? Remember this? So that's it, folks. Goodbye. Take care. I don't know how to say it in Korean, but please understand, Boeing is the Japanese government protecting the Japanese soldiers that raped the Chinese women. The victims of Lion Air and Ethiopian Airlines are the Chinese women who got into forced prostitutions. They are the victims that got raped by Japanese soldiers during World War II. Take care, everybody, and goodbye.